Library is the the British Library is the national library, and it's in the right outside the Bloomsbury. Good morning, Bloomsbury area, which is great. There's Mark. Good
Yeah.
morning, Mark.
Hello.
Good
Good.
morning. Good
I'm
morning. Good
not
morning.
I'm not used to your hair being not so coiffed. I like it.
I think this is there's not much.
But
She
your
can't see
hair.
it.
Trick of the light.
You look younger. You look very young. How about that?
There we go.
That's not what you tell an esteemed academic. You look old and wizened, is what.
No,
Anyway,
it's been like this since about my late 20s.
so I'm
That's why
trying,
no one notices.
Ken, I'm trying to guess where you are in the world right now by looking at the background. Are you still traveling?
What's
No,
it
no,
doing?
I'm back in Aarhus in Denmark. Yes, yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
Ken, I have one of my favorite colleagues in my department is coming to your university. I'd love to give him your name and let him do a shout out to you, but his name is Michael Raby.
Would be
He's
awesome
not computer
to.
science, he's social media, but he's a real fun guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean I'm in human computer interaction. That's a bit more on the slightly more on the social side.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll let him know that I've told you that he's coming. He should be there, I think, in about 2 weeks or so.
cool. Yeah, that's great.
Good morning, Fabienne. Hey, Fabienne, I may be in Paris. They're sending me money to go. So if they do that, I'm going.
Please let me know when you're there.
Yes,
And
it's for
you
that
leave.
exhibition. It's that exhibition I was telling you about. It's going to be June 12th and 13th at the Jean-Paul Bop exhibition, which could be very cool. And it's going to
Well,
be at the National Library.
the old one or the new one? You
I
know?
think the old one. Let me
Okay.
see. It's going to be at the No, actually, it's at University of Paris, Paris 8,
Okay. Nice.
at the Condorcet campus.
If I can make it, I'll hop on the train and be there.
Yeah, I'll give you more information. I'll let you know. They're supposed to be sending me the travel funds for it. If they do, then I'll go. If they don't, I won't. I don't have I don't want to hold on to my money during this time of great, who knows what the hell's going on in the world in America.
That's probably the epoch it will be called. The who the hell knows what's going on at the moment? Epoch of yes. No comments further. No further comments.
No further comments.
No, too dangerous. Anyway, Ken, we are
It's a
very
little,
grateful that you're here.
What? I just heard my
I
name.
was a little bit late because I was at a symposium. There is still my name tag on it, which is a little bit out there, but you might find it interesting. So it's
Okay.
a symposium on anarchy and complex system. So anarchy to get the idea, the political system, and complex system in the sense of like Santa Fe Institute and different layers of organization, self-organization, all this. It's still going on for the whole week. It's quite fascinating. And there might be ideas also that apply to XR and knowledge space. And why I just want to put a minute more on this is because the conference, of course, is self-organized and people organize themselves. And what we end up using is huge sheets of papers with post-it notes. And the sheets of paper are in space, namely in the building. And we see people organizing their ideas spatially. Again, very old school way. Again, huge sheets of paper and post-its, writing on them and whatnot. But a lot of things in the end, even though done differently, I think link a lot with what we're investigating.
Fabienne, is it an unconference? It sounds like it's an unconference where people get together, make their own decisions about what to talk about. Is that what
Well,
you're describing?
it's officially supported by the Free University in Brussels, the VUB. So it's a symposium. It's a little bit pompous, but in the end, it is indeed a bit like a non-conference in the sense that the agenda has a lot of empty spaces in the schedule, so that people through whom they meet, what ideas come up, can fill it up on the spot.
That's a great idea. Good morning, Jonathan. How are you? You're a regular now.
I'm good. Hi.
Oh, a regular now.
Yeah, Mondays are not normally great for me, but um, Frodo just texted me, and actually, I was an alarm just went off, and I thought, actually, I'm free, so I'm free for a bit. Maybe not for the whole session, but there we
Okay.
go.
I wonder
Frodo,
I wonder where
do you
Peter
want to
is.
you want to talk about the upcoming our plans for maybe the conference? Let people start talking about it while we're waiting.
Yeah. Okay. So, couple of updates. Number one, I was planning to maybe have a social future text this summer. It's not going to happen. So if we hang out, we hang out. Great, but no, maybe next year. And then we'll plan it more so we can all be there, not something random. On the big symposium, we are going to take over Thanksgiving, part of it. So there's obviously a balance between Thanksgiving means free time, but it also means that some people can't really travel because of family and so on. So we're hoping that the symposium will be on the Monday before Thanksgiving, giving people a chance to travel back to family, should that be their consideration. We have two opportunities. The first one is, well, some of you know this, but we may go to Egypt. We wanted to be in Seattle, Washington, but we have to suffer in Egypt. For the record, I'm being sarcastic now because of the weather, but truly, Seattle would have been absolutely wonderful because it's a really good group of researchers who, some of whom work for Google and some of whom are associated with Google, that Mar had put together for us. So we really wanted to be there this year and maybe do Egypt next year. But because of European travel concerns going to America at the moment, that's not as feasible. And specifically in my case, my social media profile will probably get me arrested immediately. Half joking only. So anyway, we're looking at Egypt, and we'll tell you more about that in a second. But if that doesn't work out for whatever reason, hi Peter.
Hello.
Just updating on the symposium. So we're not going to be doing Seattle this year. We're not going to be doing America because of travel into the country is a bit of an issue for some, including me. So we are looking to host it in Egypt. So the plan is to, and this is a plan that is still being feasibility tested and all of that stuff, to have a one-day major event at the new museum in Giza, the Grand Museum, which is quite impressive. It's going to be open in July. And then a second day, maybe there, but nearby, like we usually do, one official day, next day we hang out and chat. And the amazing thing is Ismail is trying to put together, and trying, he's incredibly competent. It's a matter of whether we can give him what he needs, a week-long thing. So we will then have a few days Nile cruise, visiting points of interest, and a day trip to Alexandria. Ismail is the founder of the Modern Library of Alexandria. So that will be amazing to go there with him. If this comes together, all the expenses in country will be sponsor paid. We would be in charge of our own airfare, which is not insignificant. If this cannot happen, it will be London. Ismail is also being incredibly helpful there. He may help us get the Royal Society, excuse me, Mark. If not, we have many opportunities here. We could even end up at the Groucho Club. So it's not going to be the worst thing in the world, but it will either be in London or Egypt. And on that note, to be clear, even though this is recorded, to get the thing in Egypt, we need some sponsorship, otherwise it's too much. To get sponsorship, we must make sure that Ismail can say it's amazing people. So Dini and I, we only last week decided that the complication going to America is big enough. We have to tell Mar, our host in Seattle, that we likely can't make it. She's completely understanding our situation, and she would like to join us abroad if she can. Hopefully we can go to Seattle in the future, but we didn't want to go behind her back. So we haven't, other than talking to very close friends, we haven't invited anybody. So you guys are, of course, extremely invited, and we hope you can come. Additionally, to put it plainly, if you know someone famous, it may help who wants to come too, because that'll help getting sponsors. We don't want a huge amount of people. We want this to be intimate, people who care. And the only kind of semi-famous person who has said yes so far is Stephen, last name, what you would do if you make fish on a pan. I don't want to put it on the record, but you can all guess. YRF backwards, which is nice. Depends on his filming schedule. But yeah, there we are.
I was going to invite Doug Rushkoff, whom I like a lot. I've had him here in Vancouver. Love his work. He did a lot of early discussions about VR. So I think he would be a good person to bring in. I'm a big fan of his writing.
Yeah, me too. Dini and I are very devoted to his work. He's written so many different perspectives on text that are absolutely wonderful. He's been an early supporter of the future of text. I haven't been in touch with him like Dini has by any means, but he does know what we're doing. So it's not going to come as a complete surprise. So we're really hoping that with Dini's invitation and connection, he will say, yes, that sounds like fun. So any questions or
We
comments?
got Rob Swigert there, that's for sure. Rob Swigert better be there. Our friend Rob, here he comes. Coming, he's appearing.
The connection
Right,
is
so we
taking a
shall we get
while.
started, Frodo, so we can have plenty of time for this wonderful discussion.
Let's see if Rob's coming in.
Good
Yeah.
morning. Can you hear
Cheshire
me?
Cat.
We can
Smile
hear you.
first.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on with the camera.
Oh, it'll get there. But before Dini takes over as moderator to present Ken, any questions on or comments on the notion of the symposium this year? Come on, guys. Okay, hands up who thinks they can make an effort to get there if it comes together.
London for sure.
Ken, I'm not asking you to start doing gestures already.
Halfway.
Where is it?
We're hoping to do it in Egypt, Cairo, at the Grand Museum, and in Alexandria, and on the Nile.
Do you have a theme in mind, or is it too early to say?
We have a theme. It's a multitude of perspectives, which is DEI, in other words, but it's also about text should be readable in many ways. That is our theme. Okay, I will mute for a bit and enjoy this. Ken, very happy to see you again. Sorry I missed you in Japan. It would have been amazing if we could have had a coffee there, but our schedules didn't quite connect. So over to you, Dini.
Thank you. So Ken is going to be talking today. His topic is called Evolution of XR Input. And all of us know Ken already. He's from Denmark, Associate Professor of Computer Science, came to our conference this past November, which is delightful to meet him in person. And so Ken, go ahead and speak, and then I'm going just to moderate. So you have questions, drop them in the chat. If you want to give your presentation straight and then do questions after, we can do that. Or if you want to be interrupted, let me know. Which do you prefer?
I think both is fine to get interrupted or later on. So just feel
Right.
how you want to. Yeah.
Let's see how pressing the questions are. Okay.
Yeah, then I guess I'll start. So
Yes.
okay, now I'll share my screen or my presentation. Just a moment. Now this is not great. Wait. So oops, insert this slide here. Yeah, so I've been working a lot in research on XR interaction and also in general human-computer interaction. So I'm very thankful that I got invited to talk in front of this audience. Of course, it's new for me because normally I talk to people at conferences in human-computer interaction, user interfaces, and so on. So if there's anything unclear or anything not so, needs some detail, just let me know. Or if you don't understand me because I'm not loud enough or so, just let me know. I'm easy to just change it up a bit. Yeah, and I thought I'm currently developing a new story, new presentation about the evolution of input. And And this one is focusing on XR, but I'm also developing something bigger on in general computer input. And this one also focuses a bit on the aspects of time and space. So I'm trying to be a bit more fundamental than just looking at the interface or just looking at input gadgets. I also tried that actually last year when I came over, but I think I completely missed the context and I just talked about some of my research instead of connecting more to the text. But yeah, so I hope this is a little better. But before going into depth into the topic, so this is a bit of my career. So about 10 years I've been in research now. But what's probably cooler is that the photos here on the right, you can see I've been at Microsoft Research, where I worked with some people called Ken Hinckley, Bill Buxton. They are like
Ken, are you still considered a Googler? They call them Googlers. Did you freeze?
I think so.
I think you froze.
He's done a
Yeah.
Fabian. When Fabian logs off, I don't know if you know this, Fabian, but your frozen image stays for quite a while.
For everybody's enjoyment, right?
Yeah, something to smile about. Yes. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Zooglers with an X.
Oh, you're in a second window now. Okay, that's kind of cool.
that's weird. You can kick the other Ken out. That's not the real Ken.
Huh. Okay.
Brandel, good morning, Brandel. So are you considered a Googler, Ken?
I wouldn't consider myself a Googler. Sorry, I'll continue. It never happened that I got kicked out of Zoom, but it just happened now. I'll go back to that one. So, okay. I wouldn't consider myself a Googler. I was just there for an internship. And the best thing at Google was, as shown in this photo, because in Mountain View, they have like the whole little town, right? And a lot of restaurants. And this was the ramen restaurant. And this was the best thing, that you can just go there every day and have ramen. So just nodding. And so I guess I'm more like exploiting Google if I would be there at Google. So they wouldn't hire me, I think. Wouldn't make sense. I would just go for food all the time. And there's a little connection to what I did this year, a few weeks ago, where I tried to meet Frode in Japan, because there was the CHI conference, Computer Human Interaction, where we presented some of our work, and it was also me mostly doing sightseeing with my family. Yeah, like in this little restaurant that was somewhere in nowhere in Japan, but it just looked so cool, and everything is like that. Okay, so that's yeah. Nowadays, I actually have a collaboration again with Google, also with Mar actually. So we're working for around 2 years, and actually I told her about this, so she joined. But anyway, okay. What should I? What's interesting about my career or whatever? I guess the one thing that is now more common is and what I'm more known for, although it's a bit of a difficult debate of how much my research was related to that. But I'm just going to show a video. This is the Apple Vision Pro. You might have seen it. You can now control it with your eyes, right? So you just look at something and you pinch with your hand. And I think I have about 25 papers in combining the eyes and hands in the computer interface. So I have been working on this for forever. And for example, in 2017, this gaze and pinch work is almost exactly that. And other parts like direct and indirect interaction are also now in the Apple's operating system. So this talk is a bit about also like what's the background to it? Why? How do we ever get to this point that we have the eyes now in the computer interface? And yeah, so I will talk about 3 different categories, starting because XR input, I need to look back further. I thought the more I try to look into the history, the more I think of what is general computer technology? How did that evolve? And then I will talk about XR more, and then I will lean a bit out of the window and call the eyes and hands thing as like a part of the next generation of what's coming. Of course, there's AI and a million other things, brain interfaces, but this is one direction that where I'm more where I have more expertise. So that's why I will talk about it towards the end. And yeah, in general, after the Second World War, there was a lot of money for digital technology. First, computers were controlled by the keyboard. So text has been there for a long time, actually. So it's probably the most important interface. But it evolved, right? It evolved to graphical interfaces. It made it easier to move a mouse around. It evolved to what we have nowadays with touchscreens and also towards 3 dimensions now with VR. And I want to highlight one dimension that goes across all of these input devices. It's an obvious one. Indirect input devices and direct input devices. So the mouse is indirect, the touchscreen is direct. And that's kind of obvious, but there's a bit of a relation to what is the input and what is the output there.
Yeah.
And the main thing is just the mouse has the input is not on the same thing as the output, right? In a touchscreen, the input and output surfaces merge together. So, and one more detail before I go to the next category is considering direct and indirect input devices across the dimensions of time and space. And this is something I partly made up. It's partly based on Michel's previous work. But he looked at it from the perspective of graphical icons and widgets and so on. And I looked at it more like from physical interaction. What types of devices do we have? And obviously the mouse allows you to interact over distance. So, and touch screens, or in general, direct input only works in close range. And that's how we can easily categorize them a bit. And that's just what direct and indirect input devices, what they afford for the user. So yeah, this will come back later. Okay, next category, XR interaction. And there's a lot of points where you can start with how did XR input evolve. And I often like to start at this point, a paper or more like a report by Mark Mine. And he said the following, that before we can create virtual world solutions, we must identify natural forms of interaction and extend them in ways not possible in the real world. So there's this kind of balance to take between something that is natural, familiar to us, so it's easy to get into this new medium, but also, we need something better than that, or something different as well, right? Because otherwise we don't need virtual reality if it's the same thing, if it's just the natural interaction that we already have. And of course, you can have something like 3-dimensional control, 3D hand tracking in VR. So he already at that point, he saw it, there's these two categories. So whatever interaction, whatever type of input you use in VR, AR, and so on, in 3-dimensional environments, you either have this virtual hand metaphor. So that's the most natural thing, like as if I'm stabbing an object in my hand, and instead it's a virtual element, or the pointer. So that's for interaction over distance. And obviously they're not the same. They have different requirements, different application, different use cases. How do you even, if you think of the mouse, there's a pointing component and there's a confirmation component. So you move the mouse and you click the button, and these need to be mapped in some way. Virtual hands, you can use a gesture, but the pointer, you can just point, and there is no natural way to confirm something. There's no button immediately. But yeah, in the second wave of VR, AR around but also in the older times, you can see that, there's now different devices, Microsoft HoloLens, MetaQuest, HTC Vive, and so on, like different types that, Fabian is also using this demos. And nowadays, there's Apple and so on. But you see that all of these input methods can be categorized in these two classes. And so it's also it's clear that there's a correlation between a direct indirect input device and this, and because virtual hand is a direct input like a touchscreen but in 3D, and the pointer is in a sense like the mouse. So you have your hand somewhere else, not at the object, and you move kind of indirectly. You can interact over distance. You have less effort because you just need to move a little bit. You don't need to reach out. And there's some aspects like this that in our research we need to consider all of these kind of design properties all the time. So what are good trade-offs between all these different ways of interaction you have? And these are two classes, and you can point remotely with a hand or in a lot of different ways.
Ken, we have a question from Peter.
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, has anyone done a virtual hand that could project out beyond the length of your arm? Sort of after a certain distance, the hand would keep moving, so you could operate on something that's 20 feet away from you and then pull your hand back in until the virtual hand and your real hand realigned?
Yeah, it's been work from Ivan Tupirev, I think, around 95. So it's called the go-go interaction technique because it's inspired by this, was it a cartoon also? The go-go superhero. And what the go-go guy, what he did is in a sense there he had some mechanical hand and he can then reach out with his hand and reach something else. But that was just a comic. And in VR, what he did is that he had a different and nonlinear mapping of the hand movement. So the reachable space was mapped to several meters in front of you, so that if you move a little bit, your virtual hand would actually be moving a bit further, and then you can reach out, further away. And that has been there. And then there was some methods like the pointer that you point and then you do some kind of click and then the hand warps to the target you were pointing at, and then you can kind of control your hand from afar. But it's in a sense, any way where you control something from afar will always change the gain. So the transfer mapping of the interaction. Because if you're close by, if it's direct, it's always if you take an object, you move it 1-to-1. But if it's far away, you have some kind of gain, and the more you can jitter with your hand, the less accurate it gets, the further away it is, kind of. I don't know if I explained this well, and I don't know if this is actually the answer. I'm talking too much into this, but yeah, but there has been some work in this, and but I think it's still, it is super interesting because it's kind of in the middle, right, between these two categories. Yeah.
Fabian's been putting,
12 o'clock.
Fabian's been putting some items into the chat for us. Inspector Gadget, which some of us remember.
Yes, Inspector
But
Gadget.
also a reference to an article, 3D user interfaces. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, super cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So then I'll just continue. You have to remind me also if I'm going over time or something now. I think I'm planning about 30 minutes.
You have plenty of time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but this is something even we research now. Is there some kind of hybrid possible within these? But we'll also get there. Yeah, but just to kind of make the connection to the general computing input devices, I see it similar to the touchscreen or the mouse. It's still about the direct and indirect input, and still has similar spatial and temporal characteristics to it when we interact with it. So meaning, if we want to use an indirect input device, we have the advantage. We can reach anything. I mean, anything we can see, kind of. but it always requires you to move the cursor around before you actually do the main action that you want to do. While with direct input, it's kind of merging that you don't need to think of an additional step, you just do it immediately. Okay, so maybe I went a bit too fast, but we're already at the third category now. And this is about eye tracking. And how did eye tracking start initially? And around the beginning of the 80s, there was someone called Richard Bolt from MIT. You might know him from the work called Put That There, this method. But 1 year later, he also did this work, which is, I think, probably one of the first papers with some kind of gaze input. And he was considering the scenario that, your manager, you have a lot of screens around you. You need to monitor your products, your employees, and everything. That's the future he sees. And it's so many impressions, so many events happening, and it's hard to cope with all of that, hard to manage your attention in there. So in this video, he showed a new system where you're simply looking at the screen. And when you do that, only that one will be active. The sound will be active and the video will be played, while all the others remain inactive. I'm not sure if it's actually working, the system. Maybe it was just a demo of something, but it looks like a real tracking system here. And what you don't see immediately is that on his chair here, there was maybe I can show a laser pointer. Here at this part, he had a joystick in there. So like similar to a game controller where you can move a bit. So he realized that, okay, just activating things with my eyes won't work because I'm just looking at things all the time and I'm activating everything and I want to be in control. So he added just this basic movement of a joystick to then, okay, now I want to start this video, I want to zoom in and so on. So have some control for the user. So this was kind of the first realization of some kind of control where you do something with the eyes, but you also support with your hands. But still, of course, very experimental, and it's kind of difficult to consider like your eyes, right, for computer control. Yeah, but it went further, and this is a bit of a complex slide. I haven't managed to simplify it a bit, but I guess it connects to the previous hand evolution, so the keyboard, mouse, and touchscreen, and so on. And if you look at the eye-based HCI literature, you can see that it's always kind of lagging behind. So when the mouse was there for a few years or decades, then researchers looked at how do we combine it with eye tracking and so on.
Ken, I have a question. So I find that when I teach the history of technology in my classes, one of the major turning points in recent times is the iPhone, right? The touch and the iPad. So we got so used to touching, and so the direct contact with the object as opposed to looking at a monitor and using a mouse, right? So you're talking about that. But it seems to me that direct connection, the desire to touch the thing that you're looking at, has driven a lot of the innovation for XR, right? And it makes us more comfortable getting rid of controllers, right? We're actually touching the object with our hands. And I'm wondering if you agree with that, or if you think that that's just I'm just jumping off of making a wild claim.
I think a lot of stuff I'm talking about is relating to that, and I probably have to explicitly connect it more. But there's been, of course, the whole direct manipulation paradigm, and that's not just an interface, but it's about making things in general more directly approachable. And that's what I also see in this whole category of direct input devices, that they have become more prominent and now it's the dominant type of interaction. But still, of course, we still use the mouse, and there's different use cases for each of them, and different pro and cons. So it's definitely one of the themes I was kind of trying to convey, I guess, with these blue input devices. Yeah.
Frodo has a question. Frodo, a comment?
Do you consider, for this context, mouse and trackpad to be basically the same thing? Because I definitely am a trackpad guy. The mouse, I don't quite get it, but flicking across this, I do. But I could very easily see that in this context, it's essentially the same.
Yeah, so I think the trackpad is very interesting and has to be actually included in this specific part of the evolution, but I missed it a bit because it's kind of this distinction between direct and indirect. And you have a touch screen, it's direct, but the touchpad is an indirect touch input device. And somehow it uses a different interaction model because you need to move the cursor around, but still it's intuitive enough that everyone is using it, probably more frequent than the mouse. And of course, there's still differences. The mouse is very easy to use, and you can move. And if I have to do more like long-term work, I probably want to use the mouse. Also, when it's about even making these slides, it's a bit easier to move things around. But the touchpad feels much calmer when I use it, and I love to work in the train and stuff like. Yeah. Follow up or?
Yeah, follow up on that, because despite Doug being my mentor and friend and everything, I'm not a mouse guy. I think that to move so much, it's too much of a gross body movement. For me, with the trackpad, I can literally roll my finger and it moves where something is. So I prefer to work on a laptop where I type trackpad like this, plus the gestures that are really amazing, 2 fingers and all of this. So when I work on a desktop like right now, it's on the side, but even that's quite far away, because with a trackpad on a laptop, it's this. I don't have to lift anything. And your point, which of course is correct, but it still feels different. When I use a trackpad, I don't feel that it's action at a distance. I feel instead that my finger is on the screen. Very much like when I'm driving a car, I feel the 4 wheels of the car, right? They become a part of me in a different way than, let's say, a laser pointer or something like that.
Can I speak to that too? I think it's interesting because what happens in XR space or VR space is that if you're using just your hands, like when I'm in the Apple Vision Pro and I'm just using my body, my eyes, my hands, I feel like I'm more connected with the objects around me. When I'm in the Quest 2 or 3, in the Beat Saber or anything that I'm VR fit, whatever I'm doing, I feel like there's a separation. There's still this thing mediating me. And I think that's what made the phone and the iPad so amazing, was that we were directly connected to the thing that we were interacting with. And another thing I've noticed, even with the art that was produced on iPhones and iPads, which I collect, is that there became a real intimacy in the kind of writing that occurred when people were writing for iPhone as opposed to writing for the monitor, right, for the screen. And so very different approach to things in terms of the experience, but also the art that came out of that experience.
Well, yeah.
Mark Anderson just wrote in here, incidental point, trackpad. Implicit is trackpad is close to a keyboard, no good, bad. My hunch is a touch typist gets more out of a trackpad as it's about time of the keyboard. Do you want to say anything else about that, Mark?
No, it's just my observation is, and working with various communities over a very long time, that the people who tended to get more excited about trackpads were people who were touch typists. It's not it really isn't a zero-sum thing, but I think it's a thing easily overlooked. I mean, it's funnily enough, I find mouse much easier because I do a lot of very fine work, not drawing stuff, but moving bit things around. Mouse, I use one of these all the time. I just can't get. I don't have the close grain control with a trackpad. So it's very interesting because ironically that's exactly the opposite of what Fred was saying, and I don't for a moment disbelieve that's what he gets out of a trackpad. So just interesting. Thanks.
There's a comment by Fabian about the relevant to accessible input can also be very efficient, hinting at the link in a browser. And I responded that artists about 2000 became really tired of clicking and looked for all kinds of ways to circumvent that. And I showed that at the Hypertext and Art Conference exhibition. And Fabienne says, by that I mean keyboard shortcuts to content itself. And Jonathan says, there's an example like Frode just said in Wittgenstein's Philosophical Investigations, Be Still My Heart. Thank you for mentioning that work, where he talks about touching things with a stick. Did you want to say anything else about that, Jonathan?
No, I think that's what I wrote. I mean, I could look up the quote, but he's got to be very careful with Wittgenstein because people like to read all kinds of things and see exactly what his point is. But I think his point is literally that. What makes us think that we're feeling at the end of our fingers? I mean, okay, naturally it feels like we're feeling at the end of our fingers, but with a situation where you're actually touching something in your hand, in no sense, not even in your mind, psychologically, are you feeling it at the end of your fingers? You're feeling it directly at the end of the stick. So, well, how's that relevant here? I suppose the relevance is we don't want to feel too prejudiced that in a virtual world, we're actually using our fingers. We're using whatever object we're using in the virtual world, or if it's set up in the right way.
I guess the question is, can you embody the thing that you're using to interact with? That's the question, right? It's an embodiment issue. And I think for some of us, it's mediating. I don't even wear gloves when I work in the garden because I'd like the feel of dirt on my fingers and my hands. It's a big mistake at the end of the day, but I don't put gloves on. So, Frodo, how about you? What are you going to say?
I also wouldn't use gloves for anything other than the most gross could damage hands. I agree with you. I prefer to eat food with my fingers. Like when I eat Indian food, when it's okay, I use my hand. I've learned how to use that. Edgar is allowed to use his hands for everything other than most, soup. But I think a lot of it comes down to levels of tool intimacy. Some people, you see them sitting in the cafe with a laptop really far away because they're almost afraid of it, right? They don't like it. And then you have some people who lean in and become part of it. It comes down to things like how do you, there's 3D mouse that some of us use. Fabian, you have one, and Brandel. And the keyboard shortcuts, all of these things come together. So it's really nice to see what you're showing here, Ken, how these things kind of build. Because for for me, if I can't do keyboard shortcuts, I feel disabled. There's abilities that aren't there for me. I was brought up on Photoshop. And, if I can't do Photoshop things within a few microseconds, what am I doing? Anyway, I think this is a great discussion, and I'll keep quiet for a while now.
Just at some point, follow up for me as well. I love the laptop as well, just the touchpad and just this very intimate feeling of it. But also, sometimes I feel like this might be in the future not used like that anymore because I just see myself so often cramped in, and my fingers are like this and typing like that, and yeah, I just don't think it's ideal yet. Maybe if the screen would be virtual and my keyboard could be further away and the screen could be close. There's this whole trade-off between you want to have visibility with content being clean, but near to you, but it should be controllable as well. But the laptop has both almost in the same space, so it's kind of sometimes in the way for me. That's how it is. So this whole back to what is the input and what is the output and what is the relation that fits to us in a way. And the other thing I want to mention, it's also a good transition to the next part. But I was just talking to one of the students here that, well, how did I get motivated to do this, even the gaze and pinch work? And it wasn't about VR. It was more like I was thinking, what if in 50 years, 100 years, maybe there is no physical device anymore? Maybe there is no phone, no rigid displays. Content could be anywhere. It's a bit the 3D vision of VR. Horrible. Yeah, but wait for it. But if maybe that at that point we don't even know what the phone is. Oh, why did people use these old gadgets? So I was thinking if you only have your whole body, nothing else, and I don't like to have headsets on or anything on my body, to be honest. Yeah. So except for clothing, for social reasons, I guess.
Thank
But
God.
I can strip down. But yeah, so if in that context where some people might even not even know what a handheld device is and so on. So what would be a way of interaction then, except for brain-computer interfaces? Because I think that's cheating. That's cheating. But anyway.
Fabienne has his hand up. Fabienne?
Yeah, I think so. There was a video of Brett Victor released just yesterday or 2 days ago, and I think the idea of dynamic land, which is kind of like saying no to XR, which most of us here are at least interested in, I think is still an interesting provocation because I think the core of the idea is no device indeed, because a lot of the work we do is in collaboration with others. And if we have a device between each other, like also as some people were saying in the chat, when we look at each other in the dinner table and we look actually at our devices, there is clearly a problem. Or if you have the laptop open on a desk and somebody in front of you also with their laptop wasn't open, rather than looking in the eyes and playing with the material, there is probably a problem. And I think a lot of the solution they found is quite affordable. I'm not saying it the panacea and we need to stop looking elsewhere. And to be honest, I even put in our Slack yesterday, 2 days ago, in my opinion, the intersection of both XR and whatever other input, but also if we could actually get to a point where we don't have the device, maybe we still keep the clothes on, but maybe not. It depends on the situation. But if we can indeed have some transparent interfaces that still bring us the flexibility that, I mean, we do bother with all those computers and gadgets and the interface because of the power they provide, like not having to destroy a post-it note to take photo and all this. So I would recommend also to check this kind of work, because I would say in terms of removing their interfaces of hardware and just have the content and each other, I think that's some of the most interesting work I've seen recently. And full computer alternatives like this, where there are no more screens, basically, which is not exactly the same. It's not what you're saying, but I think it's going more in that direction than a lot of headsets, at least, or laptops. I know.
Ken, did you want to continue your presentation?
I can do that. But yeah, I love this discussion. I'm very happy that I got so many new inspirations now. Okay, I'll continue. So I mean, my main point was just that the research with the eyes has always been a bit lagging behind. So the mouse was there, then a few years later, some person was like, okay, what happens if we control the mouse with our eyes? Then similar with touchscreens, controller, hand tracking, and so on. And but the major thing that was kind of missed, in my opinion, is that everyone treated it like the mouse is the big baseline. So whatever device we use, we need to have a pointer. We need to precisely, point with the mouse and so on with the eyes, which doesn't work. And what's kind of missing is that the direct input devices just have a very different way of interaction. There is no cursor, and so on. So, Fabian, you have another question, I guess.
Fabienne, did you want to ask a question? I saw your reference in the chat. Are you?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so just to make sure, also now that we have a bit more of a high-level discussion, I will soon go deep into concrete video examples to show a bit of a different thing.
I just have a really brief point on the last one, and that is
I'm Brett, and I represent.
Thank you. I'll try to be real quick. When I was in the army with my rifle, of course, we need to aim and all be careful. But it is really interesting. This goes back to the point about the stick or the blind person. I can stand and, just like Rambo in a movie, hold a rifle and be pretty sure it's going to hit where I'm pointing without lifting it up. It becomes a part of who you are. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it is definitely an extension that can reach very, very far. So all these different mechanisms, I guess the importance, familiarity, training comes down to part of it too. Anyway, that was just a really by the by, just to get it down. Well, shush again. Sorry about that.
But I was also at the army, and I think it was anything where you get experience with some kind of tool or handheld device, you can just, the more you use it, the higher is the embodiment kind of. And there is something to it, of course. But there's also the other direction. Right? Is there any way where you immediately get into this sensation of embodiment without having a device in your hand? So does that even make sense what I'm saying? But
No, I would say, God, yes. If you've ever been to a disco,
okay.
no, I'm not being flippant here. I mean, I think what's also interesting is that when people are hearing impaired, there's they're able to understand beat and rhythm through the floor and the movement of the floor. When you go into a disco, you can feel people around you. You can feel the floor moving. You can feel the beat in the air. I mean, the whole thing is permeated with sensory data, right? You can close your eyes and know that you're in that space, and you can feel that beat in your feet all the way up to your head, right? I mean, the whole thing is just you're embodied in that space. So I think sound and sound is very vital in that.
I think you have a much broader understanding of what embodiment, what is interaction, and I need to learn still a lot in this. But I was mainly referring to, how do you point at something, which is, very much a narrow perspective. But of course, in computer control, there's just so many ways that you can point and select.
And Ken, one other thing to think about is the voice control. I mean, we were experimenting with that in the motion tracking lab that I had, being able to call out things. And there's this whole tradition and mythology or in Western civilization about the Logos doctrine, which is being able to speak the word and the thing happens, right? You create from your mouth the word, which is New Testament all the way, right? The word was God and God is the word. And so, but the idea that you speak the truth, you speak and the thing appears, it happens. And that's the opposite of parthenogenesis and the other things that we think about in terms of creation mythologies.
Yeah, no, I definitely think also given the current trend in AI and everything that voice-based interfaces will become even better and more frequently used. But yeah, let's see
Are
about
you a
that.
video? Are you a video you're going to show us now?
Yeah, I'll do a video soon, but not with voice. Okay, I will show you just a few works from this, what I've done in this topic of eye in hand. And this is the first one. I need to, there. So there's a tablet, you can touch on things, and you see there's a little eye tracker attached at the bottom, and there's a red circle. The red circle indicates where I'm looking. And so this interface, built 2016 or something, it kind of shows that you can do the same thing. You can touch, but you can also look at it and oh, sorry, damn, stupid laser pointer thing stops me from. Okay, so it works that you can do both default touch operations. So you need to reach out with your hand, or you look at a button and you just tap with the hand that you're holding the device. And this is a demo just for the basic operation of the website. You can click links, but all the other features are also actually included. And it's kind of difficult to convey the experience of it, but I just observe myself all the time on my phone or any touch device that I'm if I want to reach something, but it's not exactly in reach of my fingers, I need to cramp up my hand a bit, change my grip. I need to, use the other hand maybe, which is also fine. It works perfectly. But I'm just thinking, like, if I do this for years and every single touch action, or maybe every third touch action requires me to move and stuff, if all of that could be somehow more efficient or easier to use. So I just look at something and tap. And that's I think there's an interesting more general impact potential in there. And maybe we will see mobile devices at some point finally integrating eye tracking, and then these types of interfaces might be more explored. And because it's also using the same interaction model, right? You can touch immediately, or you can, touch from afar. And there are several concepts that make this happen, that both direct touch and indirect touch work. But yeah, that was one of the earlier examples I worked on. And the second example is with if you're working on like a tablet device, but with a pen, so you want to draw and do some stuff like that. And a lot of times you might go up to the menus to change the color, for example, or whatever. Even in probably if you have a Windows device now, you can move the mouse around, but then there's all the menus always at the top, and you go up and down. And that's probably, how often did you go up and down? Like in my life, I probably went up and down a million times, right? So just thinking of this basic atomic behavior and how this demo works is that anywhere you're looking and using the stylus, nothing changes. Only when you look at the menu, the pen's mode will change to indirect control. So now I'm looking there, and now when I use the pen, I can change the cursor in the color palette. And then I can look back and continue doing what I want to do. This is an extreme example. I'm not an artist designer or something, so I just did some crap here, some designs, but just wanted to try out, okay, what are different UI menu elements? How can each of them map to making the interaction relatively simple? For example, at the top left, there's the change in the stroke width. Next, I think it's the next one here. So when I look there, the little dot is there, and I just move my stylus, and then the dot gets bigger. So where I look is the feedback of, the stroke size changes, and so on. So this is on one side somehow very specialized for a design tool, but of course, it's possible to generalize a bit to general menu interactions that you always go up and down and so on. Okay, next example. So this is then after my PhD, I went a bit into 3 dimensions, and in a sense, I translated the same concept of touching to pinching. So instead of making a touch point, you do a pinch, and the pinch is essentially like touching your thumb, right? So and then of course you don't have multi-fingers. It's just 2 hands now, 2 points that you can use. I didn't want to use other finger pinches because I thought, why, right? With gesture interfaces, it's the biggest design goal is always to minimize it. Ideally, it's only one gesture you need to know. So yeah, but the interesting thing here is that you kind of get the feeling as if you're directly physically moving things, because it's the same action as if you would, take something, I pinch it, I move it around. I look at something, I pinch, I move it around. It's a very similar. So, and this has advantages of minimizing the learning effort, making it discoverable for people. So they just look at something, pinch, and then they can slowly learn how this works. And it easily extends to, I can hold something with one hand, I can use the other hand to move something around while holding something with the other hand. I can just do two-handed pinching, zooming, and so on. So it was very, very simple. But an important aspect is that it's not just basically looking at something and clicking, but it has the whole model. So you can interact with one hand, with two hands. You can immediately select, one or two objects. And also an important detail is that the eyes are only used the moment you start a pinch gesture. Afterwards, the eyes can go wild and you still just manually control it with your hand, because just to reduce potential errors from people just looking around. I guess there's a
Frodo
question.
has a comment. Frodo?
Yeah, thinking about what Mark mentioned above with NLS, Doug Engelbart had a system where you did a double click. You could actually do a modifier in between the first and second click. One thing that we've discussed in the community here a bit is you do something with a hand, but if your second hand, let's say, grabs a fist, then it means a pinch might be the whole environment rather than one item. So this is a really nice way to be reminded of thinking, we have our primary hand, it can do all kinds of stuff. But if you add vision and second hand, it could do more. So I just want to say thank you.
That's cool. Yeah, it's I agree. It's a bit thinking of so you have the basic interface for everyone, like the touch interface, or you can do this, but then you lack a bit of expressivity. How do you do multi-selection? How do you copy something? And then you need to have some additional things like holding longer and so on. And this might be annoying for people that they go back to their mouse or something. But yeah, it's also similar here. You can hold a pinch longer, or you have some other gesture. But I'm not sure exactly what will be the right thing eventually, because it might be that you just want to have more UI icons around, so you just change in the menu between, global control versus object control or something. But yeah, it's a bit. Do you want to know? It's just even one more gesture could be too complicated for some to learn, unfortunately. But I get that if you're like an expert user, if you're in a design tool, you're eager to learn more so that you're more efficient. You're eager to learn these keyboard shortcuts or gesture shortcuts. I think there's another question.
I was going to say, I was just putting into the chat a book that I had read. I want to say it's been well over a decade ago. It's called A Better Pencil by Barron. But it looked at the technology of writing over time and making the argument of the importance of the pencil, which we tend to not think about. But this idea of a stylus and the efficiency and the cheapness, the way the pencil influenced, but also just a general look at writing technologies, which is important for this group here. I'm putting the reference into the chat.
Thanks.
A quick question also. You mentioned expressivity, and I understand, I think, the concept, but I'm wondering how is that like measured? If you take two device or interfaces, how do you measure expressivity?
I guess normally it's a bit of a trade-off always, right? It's between expressivity and simplicity and other design goals. If you think of, like, for example, what Frodo mentioned, okay, you could use now this gesture, now you're controlling the whole environment. Or you let the user, okay, I look at that menu, I change to the environmental control, and then I control the environment, and then I have to look at the menu again and go back. So you could compare these two in an experimental setup, invite people and look at, what's the time error, what's the usability. So there's a possibility like that, of course. But and very often when you just know, okay, we designed this, it's more expressive because now you can do 5 things instead of one thing immediately. Then it's just obvious, right? Then then you might not need to compare it or so. Yeah.
Was that produced with what was that produced with? Is that open web? Is that some sort of engine?
And this was done with Unity.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if you see me, but there's the Vive Pro. No, the normal Vive headset with the Leap Motion eye tracker attached, and at the time pupil eye tracker. Nowadays, you can get the MetaQuest Pro, for example, to get all the sensors together. Yeah, I will make a jump now, 7 years later. So because Apple in 2023 put their device out, like I was very much motivated to do more now in this direction and just understand more what are the fundamental, human actions and how do they work if you now have gaze or if you have eye movements in it. And this was two-handed interaction. And this is about specifically about asynchronous bimanual interaction. So there's this work by Yves Gyat a long time ago, but the idea that you have the dominant hand and the non-dominant hand, and it's very much a natural thing that I take something with my non-dominant hand and I look at it and I can just interact with it with my dominant hand. And it's also like how you use the keyboard and mouse together. And so now that we are in 3D and we have eye tracking and hand tracking, the hand can be both directly used and indirectly at any time. So you can reach out to it or you just look at it and do the same gesture. And that works for the left and right hand. So if you have a task that, is about this more generic interaction scenario that, you hold something, you reorient it, and then you use the dominant hand to interact. What does it mean if you mix it up? What if one hand is directly controlling something, the other hand is doing something with the eyes together? Does that just work, or is that something special to it? And then maybe it's already in the Apple Vision Pro, I don't know. But we ran the study where we essentially compared all these different combinations. So it's 2 times 2, right? 2 hands, and each hand can be either using direct or indirect control. And so I don't know. I think I removed the slides from the results because I didn't want to go into too much details. But what we found was in this specific task not working well is when you do the non-dominant hand preparation with gaze, so that you look at something and you want to rotate it indirectly. That is actually more difficult for people. If you hold an object in your hand, you can easily rotate it. You have the feedback of your own hand as well, and there's a clear some kind of eye-hand coordination happening. But if you're indirectly controlling it, it's somehow more difficult to do these more advanced manipulations like rotating and scaling because of pre-shaping. So the way people naturally prepare their hand for something. So before I grab something, if I know I rotate it, I can already prepare my hand and rotate it in a specific direction so that the subsequent manipulation will be easier. If I do it with gaze and pinch, I would just look at it and I pinch and then I start to rotate, and I didn't prepare my hand at all. So I just start and I realize, oh, I need to rotate more. I need to do some more clutching. So there's something about if it gets more advanced, it's more difficult for people if a task is more advanced, it's more difficult to use the eye and hand approach. But of course, like these examples you see in the Apple Vision Pro, you just look at a button, click, click, click. That's very easy to do, or just dragging. But this is a bit of an open question on whether we can improve the eye-hand interface to also efficiently support two-handed interaction, more complex interactions, and so on.
Are you putting any kind of sonic feature with it? So there's a feel of haptic or even vibration, so it's haptic.
So yeah,
And
I
it's
guess
kind of
because you don't have the feedback normally, right? Yeah. So I think there we did have some kind of click sound, like on a for every pinch you do, but we didn't really distinguish between different conditions or between only hand or only eye control. But there would be definitely yeah. interesting. And my students, I never think of it, but they come back and they say, yeah, we also put some audio feedback in there because it made it just generally easier to use. Yeah.
Can you imagine a song applied to this so that you have like a melody and different things, the repetition of different notes hit on different things. So
I mean,
that'd be kind
what would be cool is like probably like some kind of ping sound that and gets just always ding ding ding. So with every little manipulation you do, with the sound, it feels like maybe you go towards a goal. But
well, you can map that to a MIDI
a random
controller and you
thought.
have like notes to each of those, and you can create your music as you go on the fly. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, but this was also my last example. I should have put some more examples of our most recent work, but yeah, whatever. Yeah, getting back to this diagram, this is how I place these eye and hand combinations. But it's very much debatable, and a lot of people told me, one dimension doesn't make sense and stuff. But I think it takes why this combination of eyes and hand works is because it inherits characteristics of both indirect and direct input devices. So you can interact like with the mouse over distance, but you also can interact immediately like with a touchscreen. So the moment you touch down, you don't move a cursor or something, you just immediately manipulate something. And that also relates to Dana, what you mentioned with, or maybe it was Frode, with interaction being, the goal of being more direct, or the evolution of input becoming more direct. And of course, the direct input is the most direct thing, but I think there was a clear evolution from indirect input devices to direct input devices. And iHand is not as direct, I guess, but it's some hybrid in between because it's almost as fast as direct input device. You can just do a gesture. Yeah. So it has something. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think it's related to in general evolution of how time and space is more and more optimized for the control of computers. Yeah.
I think another thing to think about, Ken, is interesting is that there are a lot of things that happen. I mean, evolution it suggests a kind of a continuous growth and change, right? There's a linear movement, right, from old to new. But I think what's really interesting that we have to think about is that a lot of the technologies that become kind of common today, and we say, oh, this is new, were actually introduced a long time ago, but the context of the time they were introduced it didn't register. It didn't quite, it wasn't the right zeitgeist, to use that term. And so it was overlooked, or it was maybe in a small community of people and the word didn't get out, or something happened where it was not recognized. It was so weird that nobody wanted to deal with it, or so expensive, someone couldn't do it, right? And yet it's there. It sits there as part of our history. And then it's repeated at another time when things got easier. Things are cheaper. There's more people doing it. So I think that's an interesting thought about the way this evolution has occurred, because a lot of the things you're showing as today kind of happened before, but we just didn't necessarily weren't able to pay attention to it, give it attention.
Yeah, I mean this is about trying to understand how things have evolved in general, and it's very hard. The more I read into what's been done, the further I go back. Actually, before this, I deleted a few slides because I actually started with 3.4 billion years ago. We we had our hand, we had some stones, so and that's where does it start? And then I think still maybe it's still amazing if you can figure out all the details of something that will come into the future. You can be of course it's also amazing like Mark Weiser, just ubiquitous computing. There will be mobile devices. Yeah, it happened. But figuring out the details of something is I think is another direction that you know exactly okay what is the model of when you move your hand, when you do a specific gesture, how do you connect it with the environment, the objects that are potentially everywhere? So you need to make a lot of predictions of how would the future path go, and there are so many paths, so it's such a difficult task.
Brandel has a comment in the chat, curious about the comfort level of working at that perceptual distance in modern HMDs, since the virtual image distance is generally set to, and he goes on from there. Did you want to say anything else about that, Brandel? And
Yeah. One of the challenges with having a fixed fixed focus distance um, for your projected image is that you need to pick one, except for Magic Leap, which picked two, and it wasn't that reason that made it so imperiled as a company, but it wasn't it didn't save them, certainly. We like working in arm's length, but in order to accommodate greater distance out, we do need to set the fixed focus distance um, much further out than a comfortable arm's length, which leads to much more uh, strained VAC, divergence accommodation conflict. And like that's a now problem in the sense that a monofocal display system is kind of brought by it, but developmentally that's likely to be a sort of a suite of technology that's here with us for a long time. So what implications do you think that has for and in reach interaction versus things that are technically more achievable based on the the greater ease based on focusing and fixating at that comparatively inconvenient visual image distance.
But if it's a question to me, then I'm probably not that experienced, because this relates to probably hardware details, and as a researcher, you're sometimes free to say, "Oh yeah, it's gonna work out in the future," and over distance.
Oh yeah, it's good. I mean, the issue is, I think the center of the question is, while it is going to work out in the future, I'm sure, I love and have every confidence in those folks doing the hardware R&D.
Yeah.
What it means is that it doesn't work right now. And so what does that do to your preferences and research, given that interaction at hand distance is uncomfortable, and interaction, which sort of biases toward things that are more visually comfortable, that are further out of reach, in a literal sense?
I think I think about that a lot, actually, and I'm trying to direct our research more towards close by interaction, mainly because I just observe that I like to have the phones are very close, the tablets, laptops, they're all used in a close range. So I would say the majority of our work and interaction with computer is in close range, and we want to have things close by because they are in detail. Then of course, when we watch movies, it's nice to have a big screen a bit further away. But otherwise, I think it's especially for work, it's important to get that close range interaction to work. And maybe what is the input paradigm? Maybe it's direct interaction and so on. But I still think in this part, like when you've seen like some of the tablet examples I've showed, that even there's a potential to advance more, to integrate multimodal interaction, the eyes and touching and everything together. So yeah, so I'm very excited about this close range, and I'm at the other side. I'm not liking this, that with a lot of people say with gaze interaction in the community for forever, that it's always good for over distant interaction, or something is far away, that's why we need it, and anything close by is just completely excluded from any investigation. But I think that's where we should go. That's where we should improve even more on the interface part and so on. I don't know if that makes sense.
I've got to go see
Yeah.
my I'm going to MoLab's
Thank-
meeting, so I'm going to be leaving all of you. So I'm turning this over to Froda, who's going to finish the moderating for us. But Ken, thank you so much for your presentation today. So continue. I'm not trying to stop you folks because you can probably go way beyond 10 with this wonderful presentation. But thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
And thank you for putting that link in the chat. I will highlight that now, Dini. Explain what it is.
Bye, Dini.
See you
Bye-bye.
Wednesday.
And this was also the end of my talk. So.
Good timing. Yeah, Dani was interviewed by the BBC. It's a beautiful page. Please click through, showing the lab. Of course, she's got a Mac collection, so the fact that they talked about her Windows is a bit weird. The reason my hand was up was 2 points related to this. One of them, talking about a lot of history and stuff. Of course, we need to look at the evolutionary pressures, the attractive and barriers to all these different things. The whole point of the future of text community is to be an attractor towards people being more powerful with text, because there isn't that much in the environment of why that should happen. The large commercial companies don't have much of a reason to develop the kind of things that you're talking about here. And finally, Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, no pen, that was a big thing. But I think in this discussion, we've learned that a pen can be very useful for a lot of interactions. And Fabian, I sent to you in Slack the Remarkable tablet. If that can be integrated into my Mac ecosystem, Brandel, for instance, having my reminders there go across, that would be amazing. That's kind of the digital dream for many of us, to be in whatever mode you want. But of course, Apple and Remarkable as companies, they don't necessarily think that's fun, so we might have to do it. Because a final fun thing might be to work on your Remarkable or whatever tablet with a pen, and then you put on your headset and the pen is still there. It's still seen by the environment, so now it's a virtual pen. So to take these physical things with us, I think could be really quite fun. Yeah, just so many things. I'm sure there are other questions or comments while I click on Fabian's link. Great. Fabian, you send me one of these programmer talk things. It's like a GitHub thing. Oh, yeah. Okay. As regular human, could you explain what it is, please? It seems very relevant to the discussion.
I mean, very quickly, it's just interoperability. You have different devices, they have different data in them, you want them to talk to each other. That's as straightforward as it gets. And I'll put other examples that I haven't done, but yes, so you want to pass the data across the devices. That's it.
We'll have to talk about that in a session. Ken, in our last few minutes, at this point, what are your dreams for the interactions? Where do you want it to go? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking of that, because when I'm writing research proposals, I've got to do that. Because my way of working is I just start, I propose like, okay, let's do something with a stylus and eye-tracking. Let's just see what comes out of there, and we'll just explore it. And I also believe that, for me to be in any way innovative, I should plan the least possible bit of it. But yeah, what would be my vision? I think one would be that I'm hoping that we have it at some point in our phones, that there is some possibility to control things with the eyes. And that's, I don't know, that's probably very much a narrow idea, but I'm thinking we use our hands for forever now for the computer interface, and most of the times our eyes are also there. So there's, I think, a lot of potential if the tracking gets right, that we have some kind of symbiosis of hand and eyes and working together. And of course, that's normally people would say, like, Ken, you're crazy. What is this kind of weird eye gaze stuff? But then I say, yeah, look, the Apple Vision Pro did it. They did an amazing job. So I think it's the starting point. I think it's gonna go wild, and go. There will be a lot more coming, and that's for me step one. And what I think comes afterwards is that then when you get used to, the eyes, you can control things, you can move easily to everything. So maybe there's entirely new ways of controlling then with that. And I don't want to mention this, but of course AI and that can all facilitate this, making the interface more advanced.
One of the things I really took away from what you said today, Ken, was you look at stuff and then you don't have to look anymore, right? So then your hands take over. To have to look at something the whole time is just not a great idea. So I thought that was very beautiful. And Peter, over to you in a second. I just wanted to also, Brandon, you can ask that question properly, but I just wanted to advertise to you guys that on the 2nd of June, I'll be talking about making text more visual. Part of that is interactivity. So Ken and everybody, if you want to be there, that's great. And on the 16th of June, Fabian is going to do, oh my God, it's halfway through. What are we going to do? This is what we have, demo. And Ken, if you could particularly be there that day, because it is amazing what Fabian has built. And we're now in a different phase of understanding better the components we're working with. So to have further ideas for the interactions would be a perfect day to have that discussion.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Fantastic. 16th. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure if you said 16th or 17th. Okay, Peter, and then Randall, if you want to speak what you wrote in case.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Has anyone tried making use of eyebrow gestures or pursed lips as an extra control modality?
With my resting bitch face, I don't think that would work. Anyone else? That's a good point, though. But of course, a lot of I'm feeling Brandel is a bit queasy in the positive sense that the privacy implications would be absolutely massive.
Well, so the issue with that is, yeah, the quantity of involuntary things, the fidelity of the signal, stuff like that. People do all kinds of elaborate and sophisticated ways of managing accessibility input. What the difference there is that there's a degree of remove between what people are doing and what the computer knows is happening. So, you have suck and blow interfaces. It's pretty important that people don't know that what's being actuated is a suck and blow, but simply that something is being actuated. So that happens in a bunch of places. Yeah, in a context where people can do things like look at eyebrows. I made a game where you used your eyebrows to control a caterpillar. It was funny, but it was riddled with false positives in a way that meant that it probably would not have been, a launch title for anybody serious. Yeah. And in general, the more you kind of multiplex those things, the more careful you've got to be with the false positives, and you need to be very, very confident about the tracking capabilities. And then you add in the trust and safety sort of implications of giving that kind of information as telemetry as well. So it's definitely possible. It's sort of based on social mores about what people want to do and stuff like that.
And then it goes in the opposite direction. I could imagine installations at a nightclub where all kinds of things are interpreted for all kinds of effects, but for artistic interpretations rather than trying to finally move something.
Yeah. So the point that I wanted to make just as a parting suggestion, Ken, is that I would be really interested in, given that you're looking at stuff at a close distance, if you have any way to contrive or otherwise destroy a head-mounted display so that the VID is close enough that it's within comfortable range, because I would be really curious about the differences in reported comfort as a consequence. So it's one of those things that may be not obvious, but this deck is slightly stacked against arm's reach sort of interaction in a device that is specifically for distance. And so if folks have the ability to update and modify, even by destroying a Quest, probably not a Vision Pro because they're more expensive, but to get physics department friends to update the lensing, however difficult that is, so that you can construct something that explicitly for close work, it would be really interesting to see whether there are any qualitative differences there.
Mm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there will be, but yeah, I'm also pretty sure I will find some students who would love to destroy some meta.
I'm really looking forward to the Worldwide Developer Conference this year, Randall, partly because of the issues around Apple quote unquote intelligence. So they're going to have to highlight other things, and I expect the vision will get at least some attention. There have been things about some brain interfaces and all kinds of crazy stuff. Plus I'm surprised at the magnifying thing. I wonder, obviously, what Ken is building is not necessarily able to take advantage of those things, but superpowers are happening. That's becoming
Yeah.
So
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I want to go. I want to go. I know it's not open to everybody, and I know American borders aren't exactly open either, but if I could, I would. This would be a good stomping around campus time. Plus, you have the most amazing taco food truck right outside your office, so that's a whole different thing. Thank you for today. Yeah, amazing. Look forward to Monday week. Tom will be presenting, I believe. He's traveling today. He told us last week. But there's a lot left to do. And yeah, it's amazing. Ken, thank you. And let's meet together in person as and when we can. Bye for now, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone.